Now that we've seen some examples of different investments, we need to come up with a way to compare them, right? And the key number that's going to drive this discussion is how often the interest is added or compounded. For example, an investment earning 2% compounded monthly is going to get a different effective yield than an investment earning 2% compounded quarterly. So what we're looking for is a way to take a given investment and find the equivalent return that we would get if it were calculated on an annual basis. Now, notice how this is similar to what percentages do. A percentage takes a ratio and converts it to an equivalent ratio out of 100. The effective annual yield, sometimes called the annual percentage yield, is going to do the same thing for investments by converting the interest rate to an equivalent annual rate. Right, so let's look at an example here, right? Let's say you deposit $1,000 into an account earning 2.5% compounded quarterly, and we're going to do this for 1 year. So my first question is, how much interest will you earn? And then what's the effective annual yield, right? How can we convert this to an equivalent annual return? All right, well, the first question, how much interest will you earn? This is just a basic compound interest calculation. The future value is going to be P1 plus R over N to the NT power. P is 1,000. The interest rate is 0.025. We're doing this quarterly, so N is 4, and we're going to do this for 1 year. All right, you get your calculator out, do the calculations here. This comes out to $1,025.24. Now, what I need to know is, right, with the question, what it was the interest. Well, to get the interest, I'm going to take that amount, that future value, and subtract out the principal. All right, so this is going to be 1025.24 minus 1,000, and that comes out to $25.24. Okay, so that is the interest earned in 1 year. All right, so now, what is the effective annual yield? Well, that's the interest earned in 1 year as a percentage. Right, and how do we calculate a percentage? Well, we take the interest and we divide it by the initial investment, right? So the effective annual yield is going to be 25.24 divided by 1,000, which is 0.02524, or this is the yield. It's a percentage, right? Just like we do with interest rates. So this is 2.524%. All right, and one thing I want to point out here, because it's significant, notice that is not the same as this annual percentage rate, right? Annual percentage rates and the effective annual yield or annual percentage yield are not the same thing, right? The APR, that is a fixed number, right? It's how much you're going to earn in 1 year regardless of any kind of compounding issues. The effective annual yield, on the other hand, takes into account compounding. It takes into account how often the interest is added. This 4 here was the key player in this calculation. If we had done this monthly, for example, if I put 12 in there, I would have gotten a different interest amount, which means I would have gotten a different effective annual yield. All right, so the key thing to keep in mind here, right, the fundamental difference is that annual percentage rate is a constant, where effective annual yield depends on how often the interest is being compounded. As a general rule, investment companies are generally going to advertise this effective annual yield or annual percentage rate, where lenders, on the other hand, lenders are usually going to be advertising the APR, or annual percentage rate. Right, so that was nice, but it's a math thing, it's a finance thing. I'd really like to have a formula that just takes me straight to the final answer without having to go through multiple steps, without first having to calculate the future value, then the interest, then the dividend, and so forth. So let's see how we can do this. Right, what I've done here is I've just kind of written out a standard investment scenario, but I've done it with variables. We're going to deposit P dollars into an account earning R percent compounded N times in a year. And I want to make this into a formula. Well, first, I want to be clear. I said R percent here, but I'm going to take this R to be the decimal value, right? Just like the R and all of the other financial formulas we've seen so far. All right, so let's see how we can do this then. The interest is the amount, the future value, minus the principal. And remember now, here when I talk about this interest, this is not a percentage. This is the interest in dollars, right? This is the dollar amount. All right, so let's see what I can get for a formula. This A is P1 plus R over N to the NT power minus P. And I'm trying to come up with the annual yield, right? So I want to do this for 1 year, right? So T is going to be 1. So this is P1 plus R over N to the N power minus P. Now that's the dollar amount, right? But what I want is the percentage. You remember what we did on the last step on the previous slide in our calculations? I took the interest amount in dollars and I divided it by the principal, right? So the effective annual yield is the interest divided by the principal, which is this thing, P times 1 plus R over N to the N power minus P divided by P. Now I can do some canceling here, right? I can factor a P out of this numerator, right? 1 plus R over N to the N minus 1 all over P. And if I cancel these P's, what's left is my formula. The effective annual yield is 1 plus R over N to the N power minus 1. And that's it. That's my formula, right, for effective annual yield. Right, so let's see how this works. What I have here is the exact same question we looked at earlier in the lecture. You know, if you watched my lecture, this is a favorite method of mine. Now that we've got this formula, I'm going to take a scenario where I already know the answer, and I'm going to use my new method to do it. I'm going to use my formula, right? Because since I know what the answer should be already, I'll know whether or not my formula works and I'm doing it right. All right, so what do we have here, right? The principal is $1,000. The interest rate is 0.025, and N is, we're doing this quarterly, so it's going to be 4. All right, so let's do my formula. Effective annual yield is no P there, is 1 plus R over N to the N power minus 1. So this is 1 plus 0.025 divided by 4 to the 4th power minus 1. And now, if you get your calculator out, right, check me on this, and you put these numbers in, you should come out to 0.02524, which is the same as 2.524%, right? We do get the same result using our formula. Okay, so what's next? Well, now we've got a good idea of how investments work, right? Annuities, savings accounts, CDs, compound interest, right? What we're going to do next, we're going to talk about loans. Right? We're going to kind of look at this from the other way around. Instead of you putting money in for savings purposes, you're going to be putting money in as a way of paying something back.